I'm Tim Herrera with the Sacramento County Office of Education, and again we're here with one of our Teachers of the Year 2010. We're with Deb House, who is one of two Teachers of the Year from the San Juan Unified School District. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure, thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you teach, what school, and what subjects you teach.
I teach 6th grade at Kingswood Elementary School, and I teach all the subjects, science, language arts, and math, except I don't teach social studies because my partner teacher and I trade that off on that.
And how long have you been a teacher?
I've been a teacher for 29 years. My first 21 years were in Wyoming, and 8 years ago we moved to California, and that's where I've been ever since.
Okay, and have you been at that school for that long since you've been here?
Yes, I have.
Okay. At Kingswood?
At Kingswood, yes.
So tell me, how did you find out that you were one of the Teachers of the Year, and tell us your reaction?
Well, actually, at my district, it all happened after school was already out. And I got a phone call one morning, and since it was rather early and this gentleman was calling me, I thought maybe it was good news, and it was. And I was very excited, but I was home by myself, so I just jumped up and down. And then I called my husband and told him, so it was pretty exciting.
You celebrated alone, and then you celebrated later.
That's exactly right, yes.
Oh, that's great. Well, in your teachings, what have you found as some of the big challenges that not only you face in the classroom now, but teachers overall? What are some big challenges?
The situations from which my students come can be extremely difficult. And I have to find a way to meet my students where they're at, acknowledge everything else that's going on, and still make sure that they focus on how important their education is. So that's my biggest challenge, to do that.
So you're not only taking into consideration the curriculum, but where the student is emotionally as well as academically.
Because until I meet them there, they really don't care about the curriculum. All the technology that I have in my classroom, all of those things aren't going to do any good until I meet the student at where they're at and form a relationship. Relationships are key.
So when you're dealing with students, and I don't want to say they're on different levels, but maybe emotionally they are, what are some of the things you do to motivate your kids?
My biggest tool is to get the students responsible for their own education. And I do that through goal setting. I meet with my students individually at least once a month, and we look at all the data. We see where they're at and where they need to go and all of that. And that motivates them when they see, I'm a 6th grader and I read at the 2nd grade level, and we've already determined there's no reason, I don't have a learning disability. So what do I need to do about that? A 6th grader is really motivated by that. And so I say, this is what I'm going to do, what are you going to do? And they say, well, I'm going to try harder. And I say, what does that look like? And we come up with a specific plan. And that's motivation in and of itself. They motivate themselves at that point.
So by showing them where they stand, they kind of get a bead on where they should be.
Exactly, and the excitement when we use a program called Data Director, and I can just open up the computer, call up that student. Actually, just this week, I was able to look at all my students and see how they did on the STAR test. And I could, huge, wonderful, amazing, fantastic progress. I made phone calls this week to kids and woohooed on the phone with them. And they do that. They see, or maybe it's a benchmark assessment. In first trimester, they were basic and they really wanted to get into that proficient range. In 2nd trimester they are. That's terribly motivating too, because they can see that they're making progress.
But what about those kids that might not respond to that as motivation? What are some of the other ways that you reach out to them?
Well, the biggest thing is to have programs in place that meet their needs, that address their needs. So if I have students who aren't motivated by that, and basically it's because they've just struggled so much and they just feel like they're not getting anywhere, I make sure that they're in the appropriate placements. We have a lot of great intervention programs at my school, and so it's my responsibility to identify these students and say, hey, here's a student who would really benefit from this particular reading method. So let's get them started in this program and see if they're making progress here. And basically making sure that they're in the right place at the right time, and not just in that big whole group setting that just isn't working for them.
Intervention is really big now. I think it's being identified across the country as something that's really important. Would you agree with that, that spotting an issue right away and tackling it is the key?
It's huge. It's huge. And for me as a 6th grade teacher in an elementary school, it's really paramount importance that I'm able to identify those students before they leave. Because if they leave, it's not that the middle school teachers aren't doing an amazing job, they are, but they're working with 150 students during the day, and I'm just working with 34. And therefore, it's going to be a whole lot easier for me to get those kids identified, and not because we want to put a label on them, but because we want them to have the scaffolding in place once they get into middle school so they can continue getting the help they need and don't just get lost.
Mm-hmm. So it makes a big difference when you identify a need early.
Huge, huge difference, yes.
So what about parental involvement? How do you see that as a key component to a child's education?
Well, it is key, and I teach in a Title I school, which means we have high poverty, and traditionally we don't have a lot of parental support, that being that parents are just trying so hard to, pay for the rent and buy meals and things. Plus there may be some fears from past school experiences. So 2 years ago, I worked with our grant writer in our district to write the Nell Soto grant, and that is for home visits. And last year was our first year with that, and it was amazing. We didn't have a lot of teachers jump on board, but the ones that did will just tell you what a difference it made in the lives of our students. So fortunately, you can't get the grant more than once a year, but my principal and vice principal at the time saw the value of that and wrote the exact same amount into our budget for this next year using some of those stimulus funds. And so we can fund it again. And just last week I was at Kmart and Target, 100 boxes of crayons, 100 rulers, 100 of this, and I assembled 100 little homework kits so that when we go into these students' homes, we leave these kits behind to say, so we no longer, you can't say you couldn't do your homework because you didn't have scissors or crayons or whatever. I left those with you. You've got all the tools you need to be successful at home. And when the parents see us come into their homes, when the parents see that we bring something with us to help their child be successful, we've got the parents. And then we've got a relationship. And then if something crops up in school that I need to talk to the parent, they already know me. And so they're comfortable with that. And it really makes a huge difference.
I bet it does. Now you said you've been teaching for 29 years?
Yes.
So 29 years ago, what made you decide to become a teacher? Or was it even before that you knew?
My mom's a teacher. And my mom graduated from college when I was in 6th grade because she had helped work my father through with his PhD. Education, very important in my family. And I always wanted to be a teacher. I'm the kid who asked for a chalkboard for Christmas, and played school the whole time. Yeah. I can't remember the moment when I decided. I think I just always wanted to be. And when I went to college back then, in South Dakota, you majored in elementary education. So after 4 years, I graduated and I was a teacher. So I started then and I've been at it ever since.
Haven't looked back, have you?
No, I have not. And well, when I moved from Wyoming to California, it was a huge change. It made a huge difference. And I did need to go back and get my master's degree in curriculum instruction and assessment because standards were just coming in to play in a big way. And there are a lot more pressures here than there were where I came from. And so I did have to learn again.
So rather than being inspired to be a teacher, you were kind of ingrained.
I guess you could say that,
part of your DNA almost.
Yes. And then once working with the kids, that just fills you back up and gives you the energy to come back the next day and just love what I do.
Well, what would you say to those folks out there who are considering teaching as a profession? List off a couple of reasons why they should consider it if they're thinking about it.
Well, first of all, I think before we encourage everybody to become a teacher, I think it's important to make sure that there's a good fit there. And so I think the most valuable thing you can do is to get into a classroom, wherever it is, helping out here, helping out there, just observing, whatever. Some people, as soon as they've been in the classroom for a few days, realize that's just not their thing. But if you do think that would be a good thing, the difference that you're going to make in the lives of children, I get graduation announcements, wedding announcements, birth announcements, Christmas letters on a yearly basis from students I had a long, long time ago. They give back to you constantly. You made a difference in their lives, and they remember that, and they give back over and over again, and it's just a great feeling. It really is. And
you want to share that feeling with others. You want others to feel that same thing.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And there's nothing better than having a passion for your life's work. You don't want your job to be a drudgery, and for me it certainly isn't. And if teaching is your gift, if teaching is your thing, it won't be a drudgery. You'll want to go back day after day. And summers are great, but I can't wait to get back in a couple of weeks.
Well, congratulations to you. We've been speaking with Deb House, who is one of 2 Teachers of the Year from the San Juan Unified School District for 2010. Thanks for joining us and congratulations.
Thank you very much.